Hello, everybody. Welcome to our workshop on specific ideas on how to engage your learners in conversation. This is going to be led by Gene Lemlin and Marcy Mann. They're going to run us through some basic ideas, and also they're going to teach us how to break it down for beginners and different levels. So it should be really interesting. We really want to put an emphasis on conversation with our learners so that they get used to having to struggle and having to use their abilities, and so they can go out in the world and communicate, which is the main goal of what we're doing. And so in a little bit they will start the workshop. What I would like to do first is I would like to share some resources with people that we have available. I know I do it all the time, but I just want to keep reiterating these resources just in case somebody did not know that they exist. And then I will pass it over to Gene and Marcy. All right. So the first thing I want to just share with everybody is the Tutor Cafe. So this is right on our website, and you just go to that big yellow button. And if you haven't created a profile, you go in, you create a profile, and then you have access to the Tutor Cafe, which is it's like a networking site for LitNet tutors. And so what we do is we post things that could be useful for your tutoring. So we have posted things from past workshops that we've done. So a lot of you have gotten the That's Life series that we work with, and we found out that there's an audio, and so I posted instructions on how to access that. So as you can see, there's just a lot of different resources that people have posted based on things that we've done in the past. So if you are not in the Tutor Cafe, we encourage you to join. And if you ever have resources yourself that you think that would be useful for people to use, then this would be the place to post those things. Also, it's available to ask questions and bring up concerns. So we want to make it a lot more interactive. So if you're not in the Tutor Cafe, please join. If you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see this tutor resources here, and we have a bunch of different websites available. And so most of us are ESOL, so you go into the ESOL tab there, and you got stuff for beginners, for intermediates, and you're welcome to please go in there and look through these resources and use what might be helpful for you in your sessions. So lots of resources just on our website here. So Tutor Cafe and Tutor Resources. The next thing I want to show everybody is that we do have this YouTube channel. I think when I've met with most of you for the first time, I let you know that that this is where we post things every workshop that we do, so that people who couldn't come, have access to it. Also, I think it's very useful in the sense that you can always go back and refer to this. So these are the two workshops that we've done in the past and this year. So we did a review and assessment workshop, and then we also did another encouraging conversation in every tutoring session. this year. So that would be something that could be helpful, as well as all other workshops that we've done. I'm going to talk about Ellie in just a minute, but we also did a workshop on how to use this website that we're working with. We have 40 licenses for it, so if you, can somebody open the door for that, please?
Oh, this, it's through that regular, yeah. It's a chair here.
Okay.
Get over there? Yeah.
So if anybody checks out the workshop and you want to use this website, it is available to you. A couple other really useful things here is that we did a pronunciation workshop last year. With a focus on Spanish speakers, but it has a lot of really good exercises and things that you can do to have your learner improve their pronunciation. So yeah, please check out the YouTube channel. It has a lot of really interesting stuff. We'll be posting this workshop as well. So the other thing is, so this is Ellie. It's a really great, it's an ESL library, and we've been working with it now for over a year. We have 40 licenses for it, and somebody else must be trying to get it. So if you are interested, let us know, and we can give you login information. But I really like it because it has all kinds of resources
You can sit here.
that are also leveled, so you can go in here and you can find videos, you can find articles, you can find worksheets. So this is a very helpful resource for you. You can also go in and you can build a classroom. So if you build a classroom, you can invite your learner to it. So say you got an ESOL beginner, you can invite your learner via email, and they'll have access so that once you start posting things to your classroom, your learner will get access to those resources. So if you have worksheets or a video you'd like them to watch or anything like that, they'll have access to it as well.
And it's okay to have a class of one.
It's okay to have a class of one. It's not a big deal, yeah. So if you're interested in using this, it is available. The next thing I wanted to share with you is we do have this newspaper, which is meant for, for teaching English. It probably is at about I would say, an intermediate level. But anything that you use, you can always just break it down to, just learning vocabulary or anything like that. But it has a lot of articles. It's adult content, so you can read about all kinds of different things, and then it has vocabulary over here. So if you had a beginner, you could just start with learning vocabulary. And then has teacher's guide, gives you ideas, word search. So really good. It's a very good resource. And I am going to log out so I can give you the login information. So the login information is this, is the 8AB48B, all capital letters. So if you're interested in using this, this is how you would get in to use the News for You resource.
And is that the password underneath? And
No. The password is the 8A.
Okay, so we don't have to pay attention to that.
No, don't worry about the other thing. So that's how you would get in and be able to use this resource.
You right here.
I'll probably just get up in a minute too.
Right here.
No, don't take your seat.
You're not taking my seat. I'm going to be standing in it.
Oh, okay.
All right, so that's what I got for resources. The other thing I want to share with everybody is, we're in a difficult political time in this country, and I think that everyone is aware of it. People are nervous. People are scared, and this is a website called Basic Berkshires. This is a coalition of organizations in Berkshire County that have resources that are available to immigrants. And so I know that Basic is not an organization itself, but they've been doing a lot of stuff around ICE, and so it has like a lot of ICE preparedness information, different things like that, so that it's available for people. It is multilingual, so it will be in whatever your learner's language happens to be. The other thing that is great is that it's more of a listing of resources than anything else. So if you come down here, you'll see that it has, health information, housing, how to get food assistance, immigration and legal. So if things come up that you might not know about, your learner might ask you something, or they might be going through something, this would be where you may find some resources that might be available to them. Yes, Rob?
Do they get this information when they sign up?
Yes, we try to. I give them a flyer,
okay.
But I don't know.
Okay.
But it's good for tutors to know this, so that you can also refer them to it, because a lot of times I feel like, with good reason, a lot of our tutors are worried about certain things and want to help our learners, which is great. But sometimes, like as LitNet, we're not a legal organization, we're not an immigration organization, so we're sort of limited in what we can do. However, this is what we can do is refer, and hopefully people will find whatever it is they need for assistance. So so make sure that Basic Berkshires is where you want to send people. I also want to pass this out, is the Berkshire Immigrant Center is doing these presentations on updates. Please, yeah. So they're doing presentations on updates. The laws keep changing, almost on a daily basis. So the Berkshire Immigrant Center is doing just updates on whatever the changes happen to be, real time.
Can you just flash that on in Spanish so I can see what it looks like in another
Yeah,
language?
sure.
Thank you.
So all they have to do is go put it in whatever the language is, and it is in Spanish. Yes.
Do you know whether, I know the ICE app that a lot of our learners are using didn't give them a warning last week. Is it normally still working, or?
I don't know. I know there's a big group in WhatsApp that is met specifically to give warnings about ICE sightings and stuff. And it is heavily Spanish oriented, but people can translate it, and I know that's a big one. It's run by immigrants in the area, so that's something. I don't know about the app. I don't know anything about it. I know that they try to keep up as much as they can here, But what I personally know more of is the actual, like that WhatsApp group that people are using. So, yeah, that's what I got for you. So now I am going to pass it over to Ian and Marcy.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to ask you to pass these out. There's enough for everybody to have one, so maybe you could start from that end. And then also these. Just take one and pass the file. Yeah. Wait, is this, I just see something on the back. Oh, that's mine. Okay.
So we need a couple more.
Yeah.
They're coming from the other way.
They're coming the other way.
Oh, they're coming.
Yeah. Actually, one of those might be mine, but we'll see.
Oh,
Yeah,
he
you've got
has
two.
it.
You've got two.
So.
We should have one of
Yeah.
each.
Is this the next one?
Wait, you didn't get the
Yeah.
first one, okay. One more.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
great. Okay, does everybody have two?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jane Munlin, and I'm just going to start off by saying, forgive me if you've heard this story before, probably from me on the phone when I talked to many of you after your first class. But I'll just tell you why I'm so interested in this particular subject and approach, which is the conversational approach to teaching English. I guess I have PTSD maybe from my elementary school, but when I was in elementary school, I went to a Catholic French school from kindergarten through 8th grade with nuns, and we had 3 hours of French in the morning and 3 hours of English in the afternoon. And I learned my prayers and my verbs and my songs and all the stuff in French, and we did it over and over again. And when I graduated after 8th grade, I couldn't speak French. And I got all A's. I got all high grades and all my French lessons because we didn't do conversational French. We had worksheets, we had workbooks, we sang, we did repetition and all that, but we never were encouraged to speak together and use the language. And there's a part of me that thinks, what a waste. I do have the verbs in my head and I have the language in my head, and there's some seeds that were planted that were beneficial, but what a waste that I couldn't speak. Yes?
You weren't taught to think while you were doing.
Oh, never thought. You didn't think about it. I don't think we were supposed to think about anything, but you just repeat, And so when I started teaching this with my student, I didn't even really articulate it until I was in the position with her that I realized this is what I want from her. I want to be able to talk, and she was level 0 when we first got together. And so this kind of evolved organically, but now I'm like I'm really like a fanatic about it. So I want to talk a little bit about the psychological dimension to this, because I know this is important, even maybe if you haven't thought about it. I just had a conversation yesterday with someone on the phone after her first class, and she reaffirmed everything I've thought about this. And this is the dimension, psychological dimension that I'd like to talk about. It's that we as tutors love our learners. We're compassionate. We want to protect them. We want to connect with them right on the beginning. We don't want them to suffer. We want them to feel good and encouraged. And so there's a part of us, I think, that's very common, that when we see them squirming and like uncomfortable, that we bail them out. And that's what you don't want to do. So that's the hard part, because you have to watch them struggle and wrestle and sweat bullets or whatever to kind of work their way through over and over again. And it's not permanent. It's only the first couple of months. Once they are in the habit of knowing that every single class is going to be at least half of them talking, stumbling through, and you're laughing together and all of that, then it becomes easy. And then you don't feel like you have to shield them. But I do think that it's a common occurrence, especially when you're first with your learner, that you bail them out. You don't want them to feel on the spot, because I know for me, I'm blaming the nuns now, but I can tell you when I was going through those 8 years, I never wanted to be put on the spot of having to speak. And I remember once a nun said this kind of funny thing in 8th grade, and she said, we had uniforms, and I was bold, and I wore a matching sweater with red socks, like you weren't supposed to do it, but I just did. And she came in the classroom with the principal, and they turned to me, and she said in French, something like, "Do you have a rendezvous tonight?" in French, and meaning a date, but I didn't even know what to talk about. And when I finally, and I'm like standing there like this, like, what is she saying to me? And then I couldn't even answer her back, and it was 8th grade, and I was like a top student. I won a contest in the French, and I did it when we went to Canada to be in it, and I still couldn't speak French, so it's ridiculous. It's just, so I'm a convert now so I just want you to maybe be aware of your own propensity to protect your beloved learner. It's true, right? Yeah. You see them and they're like, and you're thinking, okay, you want them to like the class. You don't want them to say, I'm not going back there again with her, So work through it because they won't leave. Because the truth is, if they can converse, even the little bit by bit, that's where they feel the most satisfaction. Even though they're kind of balking and not wanting to do it, that's where they're going to feel like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can. Now I have my learner, and I haven't met her that long. I can't get her to shut up. She comes in, and not that I wanted to, but we start off, and I say, oh, how have you been? And then she sits there, and then she goes on, and I'm looking, I think, okay, well, there goes half the class. And she's talking, but I think she feels like, wow, I can speak English now. Mm-hmm. So that's the silver lining in the whole thing. You'll have that experience, and then it'll be easy. So that's the beginning. Okay, so I've done a couple of these with different perspectives on the importance of conversation, how to turn a regular lesson into, to add the conversation piece. This particular class that Marcy and I want to do, I'm going to talk about specific lessons you can do that are conversation-based. So this first one now is creating a story, okay? Now, Marcy will be talking about this, the kind of pre-teaching you're going to be doing to kind of set the groundwork, but I believe when Miguel gave you the packet, you got a sheet, probably all did, of emotions. Mm-hmm. There's like 4 or 5 children on each line. It's happy, sad, frustrated. Okay, so that would kind of be the beginning thing. You would be teaching emotions. But what do you do with them? And so you want to do something with that to get them to use the material that they're learning, the vocabulary. So I printed these sheets. I got them online. They're like cartoon, and they're all emotions. So if you look at the first one, it's like I've probably kindness. Someone's got mine with the marks on the back. It doesn't matter. But compassion or kindness. Okay, let's switch. Okay. Kindness or compassion for the first one. A little boy helping his grandma or an elderly person across the street. The second one, I guess you could say surprise. That would be a surprise. Person feels shocked. Something. The third one I think is so cute. What would you think? What's the emotion you would think is expressed by this girl? Happiness, pride. Yeah.
Pride, contentment.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be one word, but you'll play with that. And the next one. What would you say? Exhaustion, stress, fatigue, all that stuff. How about this one? Greed. Yeah. Could be, law breaking the law, or distrustful. The next one?
Hysteria.
Yeah, so she's frustrated, she's, hysterical. This another one? Joyful. Successful, right? Excited, prideful, and then angry, right? Okay, so again, what particular word you're going to be expanding their vocabulary of adjectives that describe how a person feels. So pick one, and this is something I just like take with me when I teach, because I like to have things in my grab bag that I can just pull out in case you have extra time, and again, to force conversation. But you did, something like this, I take things from magazines, pictures I've laminated that just I'll say what's going on here or something. So you pick one, and you're going to, again, do the pre-teaching. And there's different ways you can approach this. If you have a very, very beginner who's, just knows a little, just to say little things like, what happened with my learner surprised me. When I gave her this, I said to her, as a kind of a more advanced approach to this, I said, I want you to make up a story. Imagine, tell me a story. What's going on here? Just make something up. And she said, and I had a color version for her. She said, the boy has a blue shirt. The woman has a cane. Her hair is blonde. That is a traffic light. All facts, And so she needed to do that. She wanted to identify and use her vocabulary. And then we spent a lot of time with that. So then I thought, okay, I'll cut her some slack, and I just let her do that. And we talked about that. But then I think I gave her the second sheet, another sheet later. And I said, okay, we had our class. And at the end of class, I said, okay, look at this. Imagine. Tell me a story. What's her name? What's she doing? And then that was harder, but again, it was like, and she's stumbling. And of course, when they're stumbling, you can help them. Give them little, and that can be a teachable moment on your whiteboard. Use it and say, okay, no, the past tense is this, and you show, So it's not like I'm just backing off and making her talk for 15 minutes. I'm interacting with her, but again, she's stringing words together to make a sentence. So that's the whole thing. And when you start off at the very beginning, if you teach the verb to be, I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you. That's very helpful, very rudimentary lesson to teach. So that can help when you do conversation-based things. If they know how to say I am or she is, that's very valuable. So the basic lessons in the beginning will help, for them to be able to create sentences. So I wouldn't do something like this my first class. But my first class, what I would do is, I'd say when we do that information sheet, and she writes her name, I say, okay, and she says her name, I say, my name is Juliana Lopez or whatever. I live at. My son's name is. She'll just say the words, and I'll tell her how to make a sentence out of them, and have her repeat after me. My name is, and then I'll say, my name is Jean. What's your name? And then she'll say, my name is, So we go back and forth. So she's learning, but it's still conversation at that point. She's not just isolating words. She's stringing them into a sentence, subject, verb, and a complete thought. So the beginning, that's fine. I live in Pittsfield, not just Pittsfield. I am, tells you your age, whatever, years old. So that's how you would start in the beginning. But then as she's able to do this bit by bit, then you can do something like this with this, creating a story. So creating a story is probably like maybe intermediate beginner kind of, the very beginning might just be, this is a boy, this is, So again, you can modify it for depending on your level. But the point is, again, that you're going to present something with them and you're going to have to back off. And then when they start squirming, a little bit of help, but let them work through it. Let them work through it and have them, have them hear themselves say things like, and that is his grandma, instead of just grandma, So work through it. I'm going to let you now talk about
Sure.
the
Thanks.
pre-teaching you do before you do the next lesson.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Some of you I've seen before. It's nice to see you again. I'm actually going to sit down if it's okay. I'm Marcy Mann, and by way of introduction, I will tell you that since last summer I've been teaching some of the intermediate learners through LitNet in a conversation class. It's possible if you've been working with any intermediate learners that they've been in the class. It stopped, it started a few times. If they've referenced being in a class, it was probably with me. And we did conversation that was focused on slang and idiomatic expressions, which is particularly challenging because they're so non-literal. I start with it's raining cats and dogs. It's so non-literal. But we've been having a lot of fun with it, and I can talk about that specifically another time. but the focus has been on having conversation with each other. I have the advantage that it's a group, it's not just one-on-one. But occasionally there's been low attendance, and I've done it alone with them. So that gives me this opportunity to talk with you about conversation. I will also add that while I am not a nun, I'm going to speak on defensive nuns for a minute because I was a Spanish teacher. And I can tell you that when you try to teach conversation, it requires of the teacher tremendous patience. I would say that's after subject area knowledge, that's the second thing that's most important is patience. And in my case, it was teenagers who are thinking about their math test next period. In your case, fortunately, it's adults and who are focused for the hour, and you can sit quietly while they try to converse with you. And the other thing I will add to what Jean said about their reluctance to engage in this and our nature to protect them is that they don't want to look stupid in front of you. That's pretty universal of learning in general. If you've learned anything new lately, you probably know the feeling. They don't want to look stupid in front of you, and they don't want to say the wrong thing. So if you can create an atmosphere that encourages experimentation, the safety of making mistakes, and say that very directly. I've said to the group that we meet in here, actually, in the class, and I said to the group, this is your chance to make mistakes with each other, with me. Who cares? We'll have fun with it. We'll correct each other. Then you'll go out there and you might say it right. Who knows? And even if you don't, you're going to try harder. So I sympathize with that reaction of not being able to respond because you're afraid of sounding stupid. So let's talk about Jean's lesson for a minute. I'm going to break it down a little bit about creating a story. And I've looked at these pictures, and Jean started by sharing with you how there is a sheet in your packet with emotions. And one of your students wanted to talk about these pictures to tell a story about how the characters in these pictures feel, to include their emotions and include how they feel. I'm going to use a method, a protocol really, that some of you have heard me talk about before, called the KWL method, which is where the K stands for what do you know, the W stands for what do you want to know, and the L is for review and reiteration at the end, what have you learned. So I'm just going to use that as a basis. It's a 3-part protocol. K, know. W, want to know. L, what have you learned. So I would start, and by the way, this creating of a story, as I think Jean inferred, was that it will take a few weeks. This is not something that's going to happen 2 weeks. Because it employs so many different skills and tools. So many. You know, if they're just learning vocabulary, and then there's learning the verb to be, or being able to use it not in the I form, but in the he, she form, in the third person. You just have to be patient, and they might use a he or a she, but he am, you might say he am instead of he is, and you're just going to be patient, and just be, as you're creating a story, know that it's not going to happen in one session. So going back to the KWL, I would start by asking these learners, my learner, let's talk about emotions. What emotion words do you already know? And I bet they have a few. Happy, maybe. Sad, maybe. Nervous, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to prescribe. But start to make a list together of the vocab that has to do with emotions. What do they know already? And create a list of words that they know on this topic. Okay? I would then add to the list, augment it. Oh, the KWF, good. I would then start to augment it with them. Riff on it a little. You go from, we said happy, sad, nervous. Okay? You may have to teach them more words. That's when you get to what would you like to be able to say, the W. What do you want to know? What do you want to be able to say besides you're happy, you're sad, you're nervous? And if they can't say it to you, because that's obviously what we're here for, is to learn those words, ask them to tell you the situation. And then you're probably going to be able to surmise what emotion they're experiencing. And even if it isn't the right one, it's a new word. Put it down. If something that they say they were in a situation that you interpret as being anxiety-producing, make them anxious, and you say, were you anxious? And they look, I don't know, because it's a new word. Put it down. That's okay. We're making a list, okay? And Google Translate. And there's always Google Translate. Yeah, this is because I taught for so many years language before there was a Google Translate. I don't tend to rely on it, but I know it's very, very helpful. It's very handy. Then, if we've got a nice list of emotions, and we don't need to go wild, 6 to 10. Okay, you don't need to go wild. What other things do you think they are going to want to talk about? You have to talk with them about that go with their story that they would like to or need to learn. Okay. Let's say they picked this picture. Here, let's use her. Okay? This is the picture that they choose. Okay. So what other things do we need to know to tell a story about this young person? What did she just do? Here's the what, the why, the when. Okay. What did she just do? Why did she just do that? And start to discuss that with them. They have a conversation. They might have an idea. It's just creativity. You know, whatever language you speak, you have some source of creativity. What did she just do? Talk about it. I would say, she just finished something hard. Keep it simple. You don't need to get complex. She just finished something hard. Well, let's imagine together. What did she do that was so hard, and let them make something up? She worked very hard. What was her job? What's her job? And you can just be jotting these things down. Crispy jot. And that what you're doing is augmenting the emotion words. We started with emotions. Now we're talking about the what, the why, the when. Okay? What's the topic of the story ultimately? Evidently she is, because we're using these pictures. So we're going to keep focused on her. And teach your learner those words. Once again, I'm going to remind you, this is not all in one session. Because then you're going to narrow it down and repeat those words with them for the next week, maybe the next 3 weeks, who knows, and use them in novel situations that are able for them to see that word in use in other situations. They come in the door, you sit down. How was your week? Pull out the list. Are there any words on this list that describe your week? Okay. See if they can identify their own feelings, for one thing, but also their own circumstances from a list that they made with you.
I just have a technical question.
Go right ahead, please.
So the list, do you define the list with them? Do they know what the word is once you've written?
Hopefully, yes. And if not, they go ahead and use Google Translate when they get home. And by the way, what I do with the list, one thing, here's a technical tip, if you haven't thought of this already, many of you probably have. I just take a picture of it. Let them take the list. So I have a picture of the list, so I know what words we're working with as I prepare for the following week. As a matter of fact, just the other day, we had class on Saturday morning, and we had that whole whiteboard was covered in phrases, and there were like 18 phrases on there. And they don't have to memorize 6 for next week, for next Saturday. And I took a picture of it, so I know which 6 they were identified, which 6 they have to memorize. So
And they can take a picture too.
they have been taking notes, but I said, feel free to take. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so they come in, you talk about their circumstances from that list of words. That's a way of repeating and using them under novel circumstances, a novel situation. And maybe at some point you're ready to change it to somebody else. It doesn't all have to be about them. They might be more comfortable talking about somebody else, whether it's a family member or a coworker. And if they say it's a coworker, and I can imagine learners saying, I don't know very much about her. I don't know. Okay, well, this is where we get to imagine. Imagine this is her. You're at work, and she came out of the lavatory, and she looks like this. Well, maybe the lavatory isn't a good idea. Some others say, she came back from lunch, and she looks like this. Okay? And now what are you doing? You're getting them to create a story with that very list of words that you made and concepts we discussed. Now, I've said I consider a conversation something that's a back and forth. This isn't just somebody telling you a story. You want to have a conversation with them too. And one of the things I haven't mentioned that you would include in all this process is you making up a story with the same set of words. Really slow. This is at least 3 weeks, if not 4. I'm estimating. Depends on your learner, obviously. It could be longer, could be fast, it could be shorter. I don't know. That's up to you. But I would bet then the goal, ultimately, we did what do you know already. We did what do you want to know. you get them to review what have they learned by telling the story with the words a little bit of a distance. I mean, it seems silly because it's ultimately it has to be up here, whether it's here or underneath. But just having a little security blanket, the list is right there. It's not, if it's up close, it's a little too tempting. It's a little further, they might try a little hard. Seriously. Now, so what have they learned? And you're ready to have them create their story, tell a story, ask them questions, as if they really came to you from work and told you the story. It can be true, it can be not. And your job at this point is to ask them questions using the words, or maybe using some of the words you eliminated. Remember, we made this long list, and then we said, just need to use this many words. Go back and try asking them some more questions. And then if you feel like it, if it's appropriate, a week or two later, take a different picture and do the whole process all over again. Ready?
I just wanted to step in here.
Sure.
So on your Oxford Picture Dictionaries that you all should have, on page 42, you got feelings. So you got English, Spanish, bunch of feelings. So that could help with this.
Have at it.
Good. Can I have a volunteer, someone who would like to make up a little story, either on your own or what you might imagine your learner would say? Just anybody. Tell me about this person.
I'll do it.
Okay, good. Okay, so,
My teenage daughter, who I just asked to wash the dishes.
and what's she feeling?
And she's like, Mom.
Again? Yeah.
Do I have to?
Yeah, do I have to?
Do I have to work? Do I have to do something? It's,
Too exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah, good. I mean, they can be as simple as her name is Dora. She's tired. She worked hard. Those are small little four-word sentence words, but that's fine as a beginner. She's tired. She wants to sleep. She's cleaned houses. There's a lot of people clean houses. That would be the very beginner approach to it. And then you could have them elaborate. In fact, we'll do a little lesson on elaboration after this. So, okay, so you get the idea. And again, so many of these lessons can be very simple, but still trying and challenging for the beginner. And then you can just expand it and modify them for the more advanced learner, and they'll talk more. So it's not like you need your hand held through all of this. Just you kind of get the feeling like, okay, I can take it in this direction. I can do this. And as Marcy said, make up a story with them afterward. There's just different ways of doing it. And laughter is central. I mean, I think of probably a lot of you have discovered that, but I mean, we laugh so hysterically that someone in the library has to say, please stay. Because it's just, because the mistakes and the silliness and it just gets, and that's once they feel that it's fine to make mistakes and laugh, and you laugh with them, that goes miles with your learner. Okay, so let me just show you, I'll do this second, going on a journey, this one. So this one is a good conversation starter, and I've discovered, much to my surprise, that my learner, both of them, have gone to these places that I haven't even gone to. They get in the car and travel and go and meet friends, and so it wasn't like they just came here and were planted in Great Barrington or Pittsfield and that's it. They want to see. One of them went to Salem during the Halloween season and went to the witch walk, and I said, I've never been to Salem. Just tell me all about it. So this can be, they can be enthused about sharing with you where they went. So you ask them to pick a place that they visited in the United States. Again, you want full sentences, and these are the details. Now, this is actually spelled out what you want from them. The name of the place, when they traveled, where, who they went with, their friends. But again, not just facts, sentences. I went with 3 roommates, and then the names. Manuel drove the car, again, giving you the information, but demanding that it's full sentences. And if it means that you have to create the sentence for them, fine, they can repeat it. But again, they're giving you this information, how they got there, the length of the trip, how long it took to get there, describing the sights. Okay, what was it like? What did you see? And just, again, you have to wait. See, I learned this too when I was an English teacher. We read novels, and I only taught novels that I loved. So I was really lucky because I have a principal who let me teach what I wanted to teach. So when I would start to go through the novel with my students, I get all excited about it. Still, even Huck Finn. All these books I read 20 times because I reread them to get ready for the class. And I loved them, and I wanted to know, the key elements of it, and what's the real struggle here, what's going on. And so I could have stood, you might tell by the way I'm talking now, I could have stood there and talked for hours to these students, and they would have just sat there and listened to it and then took a test based on everything I said. They didn't care. I caught on to that, because at first I was talking so much, and then I would see the test, and it was everything I said. And then, so then I realized, you got to wait. You have to learn to wait. So then I learned to ask open-ended questions, not where were Huck and Jim traveling? Okay, they could just say that in Mississippi. Okay, so I would say something like, explain the dynamic between Huck and Jim while they were on the raft. Well, if you didn't read the night before, you got to. So I just sit there and wait, and then they look, and I'd say, okay, I'll wait. I sit there, and they're looking like, and I just say, no, it's okay, I'll wait. Just explain, And then they're squirming in the seats, and you can see after a while. It took maybe a month or two before they realized they're not going to be off the hook. I said, all right, I'm going to start picking people. You can't do that. You can't just pick. I can't. Okay, I'll have to talk to the principal about this, see if that's it. And then, we joke around with it. So you break it. But then once they learn that they were expected to read, that they were going to be singled out and asked, and I was going to wait, it takes that couple of months of discomfort, and then they got used to it. But asking those open-ended questions and just waiting and stop talking, just wait and let them squirm through it. So with this kind of thing, you say, describe the sights. What did you see? What was that like? And then just wait and let them try to, work through it without you bailing them out and saving them. And then, again, this can be extended, this lesson, by talking about a trip that you took. And here's another interesting way to approach it. Once they do all this and or once I share a trip that I took with them, then I'll say, okay, summarize what I said. Tell me what I just said. And then it's a tough thing to do, but they have to now remember what I said, wrestle with the words, but share back what I said. I'll summarize what you told me, but now you summarize what I just told you. So that's an easy lesson to do because you don't need much. Yeah.
Yes, Jean, did you ever do this after doing, especially the first lesson and the one you just did you ever extend it to a dialogue, or could you see it as a dialogue afterwards once they learned how to tell the story? In other words, a back and forth where you could have a conversation that way.
So give me an example how that would work.
Okay, let's say the first one, or the one you used. So the student is telling the story, let's say, and they already have the words, they have the vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
So pretending that, let's say the student said, my mother just told me that I am grounded for the week because I did blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
So taking on a role. I'm the mother and you're the...
that's
I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking, is it possible to even extend it to a dialogue?
So you pretend, you role play.
Going into a pretend.
That's a great idea, Kathy.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like if they learned it, if they were able to actually know the story.
And it's probably intermediate or advanced.
It would be intermediate.
That's still, but we need those suggestions. So I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
Role play, pretend you're the person, and then get in a conversation. I mean, that would be a lot of fun too.
Or I am the woman that he's helping.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for helping me.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you needed help.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, something like that, but just, yeah. Were you a theater student? No. Yeah, but that's a good idea, yes.
I have a question about this. My student that I'm working with is a real beginner. And sometimes when I do encourage her and she starts speaking in sentences and it's so exciting, and there could be a lot of errors. You know,
Yeah.
like something like my journey, she's not comfortable with past tense.
Right.
So things will come out, you know, and I'm always reluctant to interrupt because she's kind of on a roll.
Yeah,
And I get the message, so
Yeah.
it's okay.
yeah.
But then on the other hand, I wonder if I should be
I know.
correcting. And
That's a really good
I
point.
kind of balance it, but I don't
You
know.
do. You know, you got to just follow your gut. There's no hard and fast rule. Sometimes I'll like jot something down when I realize I want it because I know I'll forget it, and then I'll go back to it. But you have to pick and choose where the pronunciation corrections. That's another thing too. They need to learn how to pronounce things properly. It's not, but you don't want to do every word. Like if they say Thursday, let's meet next Thursday. Well, no, it's Thursday. Let's go again. Feel the air, the tongue between the tooth. Thursday. Think. Let's train or practice it. That's an important one. But other ones,
Yeah, I would also say, I agree, but I would also say that you have to follow your gut. But I would err on the side of letting them make the mistakes.
yeah.
Because what I was saying earlier about creating an environment where they feel safe making mistakes,
Yeah.
well, if you're constantly correcting
Right.
them, they're not going to try it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And pick and choose. Pick
Yeah,
and choose.
exactly.
But yeah, if they're feeling confident to be conversational, let that go. Let them do it, and then maybe try to remember to go back at certain things. Yeah. Yeah, I use my whiteboard a lot, quite a bit. I write things on it, and I'll show things, and then sometimes my weakness is turning to her and say, make sure you put this in your notebook, because we start going, and we're talking and laughing, and she thinks of something else, and then I think, wait a minute, those are gems, those rules, get them in your book. But, you know, so that's just my own weakness. But, yeah, it's your intuition, I'd follow. That's an important thing as a teacher, that you just follow your gut, you know, because we don't know. We want, and there's not hard and fast rules for everything. And your relationship with your learner makes a difference, where they are, what happened last week, all of that. So, but you want to keep up their enthusiasm, your enthusiasm, the dynamic between the two of you, and the correction and all of that. That's almost secondary, but important at the same time. So that's a good question. Okay, so this is just a short lesson. I'm going to have you elaborate on that a bit, and then we'll get something else. Okay.
You might even be able to guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, talk about this trip or this journey, and you're going to break it down, right? What do you need to know to be able to talk about a trip you took? You need to know, well, there are things that you could choose to ask this person to share. What do they already know? Do they know how to express when they took on the trip? Do they know how to express dates? If not, there's your next 2 weeks. Okay? Do they know how to express telling time? Like, was it afternoon, morning, or evening? There's another lesson. Telling time, reading the clock. I mean, they can read the clock, but in English. And modes of transportation. How did you take the trip? What words are required to express? And if you took a train, where's the station? And if you took, if you were driving, whose car was it? Any topic of mode of transportation you can expand upon. So I would start by finding out what do they already know in order to be able to describe this trip. Therefore, not only have they shared that with me so they can practice those words, I then know what they don't know. So I know what I need to be able to what needs to fill in the blanks. It could be any of those things: dates, times, modes of transportation, and then even describing names of sites. If they went to Sturbridge Village. Okay, why do people go to Sturbridge Village? Why did you go there? And their answer may simply be because my cousins thought it would be fun. That's fine. And then you can explain some of the reasons people go to Sturbridge if you know, or if not, move on. I've never been there. You'll have to tell me about it. Let's see how we can manage to have you tell me about it. Okay? And then take those words, those concepts, and those lists of vocab, dates, times, modes of transportation, and names of sites, and use them once again in novel situations. So now we've talked about time, let's talk about your schedule at work. Okay, we've already done the time thing. Imagine we've completed the time thing. We've already covered what do they already know. Now what do they want to know? Do you want to be able to change your schedule at work? If you had the perfect schedule, what would it be? Okay. For days of the week and months of the year, will you get to take any time not at work? When will that be? Just expand on the things that they can use. Just use them in novel situations. Or talk about yourself. I like to not work on Saturdays. I give myself Saturday off completely if I can. So that's telling about myself. If you could pick a day off when you didn't have to work, which day would it be? That's a conversation back and forth. Now you're having a conversation back and forth about time, days of the week. What modes of transportation is kind of like, there's a lot there, and just break down the issue of taking the trip and use what they already know and then try to put it together for them to create from that picture a journey. Okay? If you were able to take, let's say, I'm just going to use a random example. Let's say your learner has a daughter who's 8 years old, something like 2nd, 3rd grade, and they'd like to, it's her birthday and they want to take her on someplace special. All right, let's talk about it. When is her birthday? What does she like to do that would make something special? Well, she likes pizza. Okay. Well, then we're going to have to plan to go to a pizzeria. Okay. Do you know what a pizzeria is? So you're asking questions based on very little information, and expand upon it. Okay. My daughter and I have never been to the beach. My daughter wants to. I would like to go to the beach. She's never been. Well, let's plan a trip to the beach. Do you know where there is a beach? And then you have a conversation about where there are beaches within driving distance of here, which fortunately there are. What do you do at the beach? And then you can create new vocabulary about what you do at the beach. And you can use swimming as your new verb. You can do sitting as a verb. You can do reading as a verb. This will provide you with things, okay? And then ultimately to create a story or create the journey together, whether it's real or not. But ultimately, as we promised you when you came, this should be a topic for conversation, so it's a back and forth. It's not just them talking. They have to be able to understand what you say as well. Keep it very simple, keep it straightforward. And then that gives them a guideline for what they should talk about. I love going to the beach. I love the sun. I love the waves and the ocean. How about you? Why do you want to go to the beach? I've never been. What would you like to see there? They could say right back to me. The ocean, the waves, the same words back. And then I'm prone to take these words and start the lesson the next week all over again with the same set of words. But let's talk about somebody else. Let's pretend your daughter went to the beach. What did she see? She saw the waves at the ocean. She saw the sand. She had hot dogs. And then you have to repeat it over and over and over again. And then take those words, whichever they are, might come up, and try them in some kind of novel context again. Okay? So what you're doing is sort of taking words that are known, repeating them until, they're secure with them, and then putting them in novel situations so they can use them again, not in the exact same situation. Can you, yes?
We're talking about learning all this vocabulary and using it over and over again.
Yeah.
They're seeing vocabulary, I guess, because they're looking at the vocabulary words. Where do you sneak in asking them to write a simple sentence telling about their time at the beach? A paragraph, 3 sentences, 3 simple sentences.
I'm prone, I don't know how Miguel feels about it, how you feel about it, how the rest of you feel about it. But I am prone in this circumstance where we're teaching immigrants to speak English that the writing is really not even secondary.
Not even to reinforce?
It's just going to it's going to slow you down.
Yeah.
It's going to slow down the
Definitely.
whole process.
Yeah.
The talking is that's their last they keep
Talking is.
I mean, one of the reasons the teachers of language don't have conversation classes because they've got the kids writing.
Or drilling.
Yeah, and.
or doing drill sheets,
Yeah.
and they never learn to speak.
No, I'm not talking about any drill sheets at
No,
all.
you're
just-
talking about writing.
Yeah, the words are over here, and you can keep doing this.
The
or
only
you
thing
can
that I
write the
would
word
say
down
about
in your
writing would be
sentence.
as the tutor to show them in writing, so they can
Yeah.
have a visual of what that word looks like. It helps them to learn to pronounce it, particularly when they're hard to pronounce.
Mhm.
You know, Wednesday.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean, come
to show them,
on.
but to help them construct a sentence.
No,
It's
I-
secondary at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think so.
And it takes a whole different energy and level, spelling and all of that, so if, you gotta really get over that hump of conversation first.
And I will tell you, I had a learner for a while, and I don't know if any of you had this circumstance, who had a third grade education in Spanish to begin with. So asking him to write
Yeah.
Mhm.
was not something he wanted to be asked to do.
Yeah, I've got two people who can write and like to write, and they have 10th grade educations, which is their highest level in the country.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of,
Eager, sure.
and-
Reliant on the
Yeah, they
writing.
don't want to see
But you see,
me write
that's
the
another,
word.
that's another thing. They're reliant on the writing, and you want them speaking.
Well, they want to speak their words.
Well, good.
I mean, I think it helps them organize.
Yeah.
It's just a different
Yeah.
way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can see them not being able to remember. And part of that is they have jobs, they've got children, they've
Yeah,
got,
sure.
all of this.
I would say that if they're eager to write, it should be after they've spoken. If they've
Yeah.
told you something about this journey we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about,
yeah,
this trip, okay, let's write 3 sentences about it. But they have to have been
go
able to
home.
say it
Go
first.
home and during the week that we're not together, write something, Ask
Yeah.
Sometimes
ask
they take
yourself
Google
these questions.
They'll take it straight from Google.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. If they want to use that thing, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's reinforcing.
I don't know what they're achieving, frankly, to be
Yeah.
able to write it in English if they saw it on Google Translate. I don't know what that time is for then, what they're achieving, really.
I just think it's reinforcement.
Yeah, there's certainly not, it is certainly
Yeah,
reinforcement,
and they're
that's
sitting
true.
down and doing it.
Yeah.
My problem is I have
Yeah.
a hard time getting the young parents of 3, 2 teenagers
Sure.
and an 8-year-old girl.
Yeah.
To really do, and I'm asking
course.
them, can't you do the homework with your 8-year-old daughter? She will be able to teach you, and then you can talk back to her.
One of the things
And
I've
they-
asked of
they
my
don't
learners,
do that.
because they're so busy,
Yeah,
I asked them to come just, whatever we talked about that day in class, come next week and tell me
what we
where
talked
you,
about.
where you heard those words this week.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
make note, write that down.
That kind of angle.
Yeah.
Get that angle in so they're using.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
I'm reluctant to give serious written homework or spoken
Oh,
homework.
no, it's all
So
based on
time.
conversation.
Yeah.
All the stuff
Yeah.
we've been doing
Yeah.
in conversation.
Other questions? Yeah.
I know, actually, I don't have a learner presently, but when I did, we could take the whole time, with this. with
Yeah, yeah,
right.
sure.
But then, he had the English for Everyone book.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, that's in this, yes. So, but how do you, with the limited amount of time you have, because some of that is essential if you're going to be working
Sure.
on
That's
the
what we're
verbs to
talking about
be
this
and
in a
things.
minute.
Oh, you are, okay.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about conversation, textbooks are remiss
Yeah.
in the main. So I'll let Jean pick that up. That's, go for it.
All right, good. Yes.
I just, it's not so much a question, but it sounds like if you've got a more proficient student, then the writing
Go with
is a
it.
little
Say.
different. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
for me, it was the biggest shutdown. The mental
Yeah.
burden
Yes.
of getting the sentence order right straight,
Yeah.
and I could go on and on. But what mine really did like in it, everything you're doing is, but then what they really liked was I would write, and they felt very being able to read it.
Okay.
Because you've been doing a lot of it
Ah.
on the whiteboard or wherever you do
Yeah.
it, and they felt a tremendous sense of accomplishment because they'd been seeing it a lot.
Well, that's
The
good, yeah.
writing was a shutdown.
I would,
That's at the beginning. Let
I
them
have-
write it on the board. Possibly.
No, not write at all.
Yeah.
No writing.
I guess
at all.
I'm
Reading.
unusual because
Reading.
mine are 10th grade
Yeah,
kids
that's-
and they were
that's
writing in
a
school
different
and
thing. Just
they're
one
from the
quick,
country.
I don't make it. He gave me a kit that had these amazing pictures of the 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Several, for each.
Oh.
And what you're doing here around using because
Yeah.
I like summer.
Okay,
because
okay.
and all
We'll
that.
do that. Yeah.
So, and then they were sort of like, how many, because we went, because I had a class. It's a great way into have a
Four
conversation.
season, oh, good.
Four seasons.
Yeah,
It's a
very
resource,
good.
just to mention,
Yeah.
that he has there that work really well.
Oh, I'm gonna look at that, I haven't seen that. One of the things I've noticed too with my learner could read English beautifully. She just reads and reads and reads. And I say, so what was that? She had no idea what she read.
Exactly.
Right.
No
Right.
idea. So it's just, so we just, anyway. So I want to jump to this. This is not part of what I was doing, but it occurred to me when I was lying in bed last night how I use this course book, English for Everyone, and I will teach something like this. But I want to show you how this is just like a stepping stone. It's a launch pad for something. So this is things you have, okay? This is so you're learning possessive pronouns. Felix is my cat. Buster is her dog. Rachel is our daughter. So this is where a lesson comes in. I would do this with my learner. She'd do this, and she'd be great at it because I know both of my learners that just were really good at worksheets and work. So they do all this. If you were to stop here, this is just going to roll right off of them. And that's the problem. It's good. They have to learn it. It's important, but it's not enough. It has to be used. So then after you do this lesson where they get the idea of I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, his, her, and all that, you can write it on the whiteboard too, and you can even have it right there. Close the book, push it aside, and then force yourself to figure out a way how she can or he can use those possessive pronouns right now with you. You could get up in the library and you could walk around. That is her pen. This is my book. You know, just starting. Those are sentences. Again, it's not like a engaging conversation, but it's the use of the words in full sentence structure. So, and I'll say, and I'll just point and I'll say. And she'll say, and I say, and I'll say, then she'll say, that is your, and she might not know the word, I'll say bracelet, okay, that's your bracelet. And I'll say, where is your bracelet? And then we had this funny thing when we did it with this, because she was mixing up mine and yours, and she'll say, this is yours. And I'll say, no, this is yours. And she'll say, yes, it's yours. No, it's yours. So we did this thing, but again, the lesson is helpful. These are important, because there's, those things with time and all that. Then close the book, push it aside, and figure out how you're going to go back and forth using those words. And the whiteboard can be very helpful to as a guide. It's just like the one of the lessons I talked about in another class was once you teach question openers, who, what, when, where, and why, those are important. Okay. After I would list them on the board, on the whiteboard, after I could see that she understood them, I'd list them on the whiteboard, and I would say something like, I went out to dinner last night. And then I'd just wait, and I'd say, and she'd have to say, who did you go with? When did you go? Where did you go? All the questions. She had to ask me and question me. And after she's done and I'm answering, I went with my husband, we ate this, I went at 7 o'clock, whatever. Then I say, okay, summarize. And then I wait. She has to tell me everything I told her using the who. You went to the restaurant, you ate pizza, your husband, so that's such a simple thing, but that is so invaluable. Who, what, when, where, why, teach them, list them, and then make an open-ended statement. I visited my grandson. When did you visit him? What is his name? Who did you go with? Where does he live? All those things. And then I answer them all, and then I say, okay, summarize what I just told you. And that can almost be like a half hour. But so use your book, and then use it as a springboard to cultivate conversation using the words. And do it on the fly. I mean, this is not, at first you're going to be preparing all these lessons, but you'll realize how little it takes to get them inspired to talk. And it can just be something that you think of oh, did you watch a show last night, TV? And she might say, yeah. What's the name of it? The name of the show is. What happened in it? Who, it could just be something you pull out of your back pocket and just end up talking about 20 minutes together. So So don't feel like you always have to have these perfectly constructed lessons, because a little can go a long way. Okay, we're just going to do this last one now, and this is the using the word because. These aren't exactly in order, but
Can I just ask one question about the text?
yeah.
I think in the text somewhere it mentions audio.
Yes, there are.
Go to the audio.
Okay, so you go to EnglishForEveryone.org.
Okay.
EnglishForEveryone.org, and they'll tell you. It says it here.
They can do it on their, I did it with my student.
Yeah, me too.
You can do it on the phone.
Here,
It's really easy.
back here.
Okay, yeah.
Once you get to
Yeah,
it, it's
yeah,
very
easy. Yeah,
very
and it's
self-explanatory.
good. You could reread, you can rewind it, and
Can
so-
they, so if they're sitting at home at night, they can go to that and listen to whatever
Yes.
the
Yeah,
audio
no
Yeah.
password, no.
Yeah, it's very simple.
yeah, very simple, and it
I can
helps
do it.
them. Yeah, and then just answer the little. It'll be linked to some exercise that they do
Got it.
and listen.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's good.
And the links on the page that they're looking at.
Yeah, the lesson, like the units, they call it like this lesson is 23
Yep.
orders and directions. Then there'll be 23.4, 23.5.
Got it. And that's how they
And they'll show you the
identify.
headphones, and
Got
that's what you do.
Got it, okay.
Well, we do
thank
that in the library together. I just sit with her and I let her listen just
Yep.
sometimes. Okay, so here's another. We have to end properly at 4:30, so that's just the way it's worked. So here's something using the word because. So this now is for intermediate or advanced beginner, the kind of thing where they're comfortable with stringing a sentence together. Like, I like my learner says she likes junk food. And she knows that that's a trigger for me because I am so anti-junk food. She laughs, she brings me candy. And I'm like, oh, God. So anyway, this is just a way again to encourage your learner to elaborate, to make a longer sentence. So I had her list 5 things that she likes to do and 5 things that she doesn't like. It can be likes to do, it can be likes to eat, 5 food, anything. 5 yeses, positives and negatives of that. And then, and that takes a while. She has to say, I like to travel, I like to dance, I like to listen to music, whatever. And then 5 things that she doesn't like. And then we go back and then I say, okay, now tell me why. So if she says, I like to eat junk food, and I say, why? And then she's, because it tastes good. And I'll say, and I don't like junk food because it will kill you. And we laugh and go back and forth. There's just like silly things back and forth. But the because, once they learn because, means they have to explain themselves. Yeah. So that's a good way to encourage them. And then a common thing, it's still common with my 2 learners, and they're pretty advanced. I don't like, I know like. And I say, oh, stop. I don't like. That's a contraction for do not. I don't like. So I don't like, and then 2 minutes later, I don't like. I know like, I don't like. So that's something we go over and over again, and I do this like I'm pretending I'm hitting her. Because I was with the nuns, so corporal punishment's allowable in my class. I'm only joking. So it's funny because she's so advanced in so many ways, but she's still saying, I know like. I don't like.
And can I interject there, just when you get on something like that, don't bother with the grammar of the contraction. Just the word don't.
Don't, yeah.
It'll only bog you down.
Yeah.
The expression is I don't like.
Yeah.
We don't need to know that it was do and not get combined.
Right, that's right. Yeah. So, and then I have here too, if you want to modify this and expand it, you can also explain the word do, that's a tough one for them because do. She said, I remember saying to me, do, what's do? So you use do as part of a contraction, but then you say, do you want to come with me? Do you want? Like it's an auxiliary verb. So then it's helping you, the verb, but then it's a contraction. So I just say, that's English, loco. What else can you say? The Vikings screwed it up, and then the Romans came in, and then, the German, it's hard. It doesn't, rough, enough, through, bow, though. I mean, I said, just accept it. I can't explain it all. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so this is just something that if you're sitting next to your learner and she's talking and you're getting just like little bites and you just say, explain that, because, and then you have to wait, and then that forces them to search for the words and elaborate. So I'm a fan of the word because, so I've kind of created a lesson for it. Does anybody have any questions that maybe we didn't, Kathy?
Well, I just wanted to mention, when you spoke about that book, I've also used that book. But what I found was very helpful was attaching all of the language issues to a particular task or a scenario, like going to the beach, or the journey, or writing a story, and then breaking it down, which is a segue beautifully to assessment. Because as you look at each part of a task, the end goal, you can then see what the student has to know in order to get there.
Okay, give us an example.
Okay. Perfect example was what Marcy was saying. Going on a journey. What do you need to know in order to go on the journey? So in other words, each one of those tasks or mini tasks would lead to the ultimate goal, which is going on a journey.
Breaking down. You reminded me of something I saw once that I thought was clever. So you take what you just said, and to go on a journey, you want to pack a suitcase?
Right.
Okay, tell me what to pack a suitcase. What are you going to put in the suitcase? That's a half hour, especially if it's a female. All the stuff. They have to learn the vocabulary. But,
right, and they had to learn the time, the dates. In other words, that leads right to the ultimate goal, writing a story. What do you have to know in order to write the story? The end goal is writing the story.
Right.
That's the major assessment, which is the end goal. If they can tell you the story, they got it.
Yeah.
So, and of course, that leads to assessment, a whole separate piece on assessment.
Right. And you also remind me of another thing, and Marcy said it too, is your next class, you should review everything you did in the previous class.
Right.
They forget, and they do
Review
forget.
is critical.
So let's just say you have to have a class, and you have a date for your class, and something comes up, and you just couldn't prepare for it. You got your book, if you keep your notes, you could just sit down with them and say, okay, we're going to review, and you could go through everything, and that's a whole class. So don't always feel like, you have to invest, a solid hour in getting this whole thing, because many times you're only going to do half of it, because something will come up, and you should respond to it. Again, follow your intuition. It's really valuable as a teacher. You think, oh boy, she doesn't know that. She's cleaning houses, and she doesn't know the word dust and mop and all that. Oh, because she works with another Spanish-speaking person, and they don't need to know it. But what if? And then you find out, okay, they need that vocabulary. Okay, go with that, and then push your lesson aside and do it next week or something. So have the confidence to do that. So do you?
I had one more thing I wanted to talk to you about. Miguel wanted me to talk to you a little bit about what we accomplished in these slang and idioms class, because it's been a lot of fun, and it's something you could definitely mimic, even if it's not about slang or idioms. This class started last summer, and it's had a variable class list. Let's put it that way. Different people, different times a year, coming and going. But there's been a few stalwarts, and we keep going. In any case, we started this at the beginning of the summer, and they knew they were coming in to learn idiomatic expressions. We discussed what that is. We accomplished that pretty quickly. Remember, these are intermediate learners. Most of them speak English. There are different levels of intermediate, I will say that. So some are pretty sophisticated, but some are at the beginning and everywhere in between. We made a fairly, not exhaustive, but a long list of idiomatic expressions together. This was in the summer. And I typed it up after we made it, and I gave them copies. And these were fairly common ones. I started getting them going. They started to add them. I mean, things like this that they hear all the time. Are you on top of it? Expression on top of it. Okay. It's up to you. Okay, that was take it easy. Lighten up. It's chill. Okay. That bugs me. one they thought was very, I learned a few things too, common idiomatic expressions that are generational, and I don't use so much, and they do. And one of them was, "You're killing me." You're killing me. To have the blues, what does it mean to have the blues? Okay, if somebody says to you, do you have the blues? Okay. Someone has deep pockets. Someone offered that they'd heard that his boss has deep pockets. Yeah, that was a good one. It costs an arm and a leg. You get it. This information is over my head. Is it over your head? Okay, so the bottom line, that was a really common one. What is the bottom line that comes in? So we made this long, long list, okay? But I just actually reduced it and mentioned to you maybe 7 or 8 of them out of what, I don't know how many there are here, 30-something. So that demonstrates what we did next, is we narrowed it down to the ones they heard the most, the ones they needed to know the most, okay? And I chose 4 to focus on each week, to repeat every single week. And after 4 weeks, I did that for 4 weeks. So I chose 4 that we used for 4 weeks. I know it sounds repetitive. I know it sounds redundant. But believe me, they know them now because we did them so much. But then at the end of 4 weeks, I added 4 more, and it was exponential. So now we have 8, okay? And I started repeating 8. And I have to tell you that we started, I don't know, late June last year, Miguel. We're only up to about 16, frankly. It hasn't gone very fast. We're up to about 16. However, the first 4 that we did, I just want to tell you what the first 4 that we did, because I'm telling you, if they were here, they could use these like that. It rings a bell. These happen to be on the cover of, they have a book, an idioms book, and these happen to be on the cover, these 4. Something rings a bell, which as a phrase I happen to use a lot, so that was great, because I could use it with them. I want to take 40 winks. I'm on cloud 9.
What is it? I want
40 winks.
Yeah.
40 winks. A nap. She's on cloud 9, and I'm snowed under. Those were the 4 that were on the cover of their book. So I started with those 4. They weren't even on this list. Okay? And so what do I do? What do I do with them? I make up questions, and I ask them using them in context. I set a context. I ask a question. Then I ask them to do that with each other. Another week I'll have them come in and make up sentences using them. They are so sick of these phrases. I don't care. I do not care, because even I sent them a note. I sent them a note on WhatsApp the day before the class starts, and somebody had been missing the class the week before because she'd taken her daughter on a college visit. And when I sent the note about next class, she wrote back to everybody about this beautiful university she visited. Very broken, well, not very broken English, intermediate level English. It was so beautiful, and it was a picture of her on the college campus, and she said, "I'm on cloud 9." She wanted the whole class, because they loved it. They loved it. Okay, so is there anything else I want to say about that? Just repeat.
The funny one that I had was Miguel and Lee got a kick out of it. My student came to me one day. Actually, it was her husband. And he wasn't taking the class, but he wanted to, he says, "What's the word? How you doing?" I said, "What? How you doing?" She said, "Well, how you doing?" His wife saying, "How you doing?" We can't find him. I said, "Oh, people came into work. I said, hey, how you doing?" And he did. It just so then when I told, they thought that was the funniest thing, because they just assumed it was this one word. And they couldn't find it anywhere to describe how you doing. So sometimes it can be beneficial to say, "Is there anything that, by the way, that you want to ask that you are confused about?"
Speaking of which, is there anything you'd like to ask that you're confused
about? Are you taking new students into that?
Yeah, always.
Oh, so I would be interested in have my...
Tell the student to speak to Miguel, and Miguel will make it happen. The issue will come as no surprise to you with taking in new students. I have no problem with it. Is their schedules. There's only...
When do you...
Right now it's Saturday mornings. For a few more weeks we're going to do Saturday mornings, and then we're going to have to change it again. I keep changing it.
Where is it?
Here, right in this room.
Okay.
Another subject, does everybody have Google Translate on their phone? Yeah. It's your friend. Don't. Sometimes people feel apologetic using it. No, you have to, many times, save the day with that to explain, to show.
Thank you all for coming and for the work you're doing. I'm sure it's making a difference. It's great.